Dr. Ara pressed her long fingers against the control panel and watched the blue planet spin slowly on the main screen. Earth looked peaceful from this distance. The small world turned quietly in the darkness of space, covered in white clouds and blue oceans. It was hard to believe that millions of creatures lived down there. "Another day watching the primitives," said Doctor as he floated into the observation room. His 4 arms carried different data tablets, each one showing numbers and charts about the planet below. "Have they discovered anything new today? Maybe they learned how to make fire without rubbing sticks together." Ara made a soft clicking sound that meant she was amused. "Do not be so harsh with them. They are actually quite fast learners for such a young species. Look at this data." She pointed to a chart on her screen. In just 10,000 of their years, they went from living in caves to building flying machines. Most species take 50,000 years to do the same thing. Doctor, the youngest member of their team, swam closer through the ship's liquid atmosphere. Her tentacles moved gracefully as she studied the information. "The humans do learn quickly," she agreed. "But they are still so far behind us. They barely understand their own star system. They think they are alone in the universe." The 3 scientists worked for the Galactic Scientific Consortium. This was a group of the most advanced species in the galaxy. They traveled from world to world, studying young civilizations and writing reports about them. Their job was to watch and learn, but never to make contact. Young species needed time to grow and develop on their own. Ara had been doing this work for over 300 years. She had watched dozens of species grow from simple animals into space travelers. Some became peaceful traders. Others became dangerous warriors. A few destroyed themselves before they could leave their home planets. The humans were interesting because they seemed to be both very smart and very violent at the same time. "Show me their latest weapons," Ara said to the ship's computer. The screen changed to show different human military bases. Soldiers marched in straight lines. Large metal vehicles rolled across the ground. Flying machines soared through the sky, leaving white trails behind them. "Chemical propulsion," said, reading from his tablet. "Explosive devices, metal projectiles fired by controlled explosions. Very basic stuff. Exactly what we expected from a species at their level." The humans had many different groups that fought with each other. They called these groups nations or countries. Each nation had its own army and its own weapons. The aliens found this very strange. Most advanced species united their whole planet before they started exploring space, but humans seem to enjoy fighting with each other. "They have discovered nuclear fission," reported. "Some of their weapons use atomic energy now. That is a big step forward." "Yes, but they use it wrong," Ara replied. "They make bombs instead of power plants. They create weapons instead of tools. This is why they are not ready for contact with other species." The observation ship hung in space far beyond Earth's moon. It was completely invisible to human detection systems. The ship's technology was thousands of years ahead of anything humans could imagine. The aliens could see through walls, listen to conversations, and read computer files from millions of kilometers away. Every day, the 3 scientists collected data about human progress. They measured how fast humans learned new things. They counted how many humans were born and how many died. They watched human cities grow larger and human machines become more complex. "Look at this," said, pointing to a new image. "They have started sending small devices into orbit around their planet. Primitive, but it shows they want to explore space." "Very primitive," Ara agreed. "Those devices barely work. Half of them fall back down to Earth within a few months. But you are right. It shows they are curious about what lies beyond their world." The aliens had rules about which species they could contact. A species had to meet certain requirements first. They needed to develop faster-than-light travel. They needed to unite their entire planet under one government. They needed to prove they could live in peace without destroying themselves or their environment. Humans had achieved none of these things. They were still stuck on their one small planet. They still fought wars with each other. They still polluted their air and water. According to consortium rules, humans needed at least another 1,000 years of development before they would be ready for contact. "I will write today's report," said. "Should I use the standard language?" "Yes," Ara replied. "Species designation, Sol 3 humanoid. Status, developing normally for Type 0 civilization. Technology level, chemical and early atomic. Estimated time to space capability, 800 to 1,000 local years. Recommendation, continue observation, maintain distance." This was the same type of report they had written every day for the past 5 years. The humans were predictable. They followed the same pattern as most young species. They learned slowly, fought often, and gradually became smarter over time. "Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to talk to them," said quietly. "They seem so curious about everything. Look how hard they try to understand their universe." "That is exactly why we cannot contact them," replied firmly. "Young species need to find answers by themselves. If we give them technology they are not ready for, they will only use it to hurt each other." Ara nodded in agreement. The consortium had learned this lesson the hard way, long ago. When advanced species tried to help younger ones too early, the results were usually disaster. The young species would take the new technology and turn it into weapons. They would start wars that destroyed entire planets. "The humans will be fine," Ara said. "They are smart enough to figure things out eventually. We just need to be patient and watch them grow." The 3 scientists returned to their work, recording data and writing notes. Outside their ship, Earth continued its slow rotation. Down on the planet's surface, millions of humans lived their lives, completely unaware that alien eyes were watching them from the darkness of space. None of the aliens suspected that something was about to change. Something that would turn their peaceful observation mission into a crisis that would shake the entire galaxy. 3 weeks later, Dr. Ara was reviewing the daily reports when the ship's alarm made a soft beeping sound. She looked up from her data tablet with mild curiosity. The alarm was not urgent or dangerous. It meant the ship had detected something unusual. "What is it?" asked Doctor as he glided into the observation room. "Unknown energy signature," Ara replied, touching the control panel. The sensors picked up something strange from the planet's surface. The main screen lit up with waves of colored light. These waves showed different types of energy coming from Earth. Most of the patterns looked normal. Radio signals, electrical power, heat from cities, and electromagnetic radiation from human technology. But one wave looked different. It was stronger and sharper than the others. "Where did that come from?" asked as she joined them. Ara touched the screen and zoomed in on the source. The image showed a large gray ship floating on Earth's ocean. It looked like the warships humans used in their military. But this ship seemed different somehow. "Run a full scan of that vessel," she ordered the computer. Numbers and data filled the screen. The ship was about 200 meters long. It had thick metal armor and several weapon systems. Most of the weapons looked normal for human technology: explosive rockets, chemical guns, and energy detection devices. But one section of the ship glowed brightly in the electromagnetic spectrum. "That is not possible," said, studying the data. "Look at these power readings. That ship is generating more electricity than most human cities." Ara frowned. Humans usually powered their ships with chemical fuel or simple nuclear reactors. The energy levels they were seeing were far beyond normal human capability. "Maybe their reactor is malfunctioning," suggested. "Perhaps it is about to explode." "No," Ara said slowly. "The energy is too controlled, too focused. They are doing this on purpose." Suddenly, the energy reading spiked dramatically. The screen flashed bright white for a moment, then returned to normal. All 3 aliens stared at the data in confusion. "What was that?" demanded. Replay the sensor data from the last 30 seconds, Ara ordered. The computer showed them what had happened. The human ship had fired something into the sky, but it was not like any weapon they had seen before. There was no explosion, no chemical fire, no visible projectile. Instead, there was a massive pulse of electromagnetic energy. "Enhance the tracking data," she commanded. New information appeared on the screen. The computer had detected a small metal object traveling at incredible speed. The object was moving at nearly 8,000 kilometers per hour. It flew in a perfect straight line until it hit a target island several hundred kilometers away. The three aliens looked at each other in shock. "That cannot be right," said. "Check the sensors, there must be an error." Ara ran the diagnostic 3 times. Each time, the results were the same. The humans had somehow launched a projectile at speeds that should have been impossible with their technology. "How did they do that?" whispered. "I do not know," Ara admitted. "Their metallurgy is not advanced enough to build projectiles that can survive those speeds. Their power systems cannot generate that much energy. This should not be possible." They watched the human ship for the rest of the day. Nothing unusual happened. The crew moved around normally. The ship sailed to a different location. Everything seemed perfectly ordinary. But late that evening, it happened again. This time, they were ready. Every sensor on the alien ship focused on the human vessel. They recorded everything from radio waves to gravitational fluctuations. The electromagnetic pulse was even stronger this time. The projectile moved even faster. It traveled over 1,000 kilometers and struck another target with perfect accuracy. "There," said, pointing at the data, "look at that energy pattern." Ara studied the readings carefully. The pattern showed a massive buildup of electrical power, followed by a rapid discharge. The energy moved through what looked like a long metal tube mounted on the ship's deck. "Electromagnetic acceleration," she said quietly. "What?" asked. "They are using electromagnetic fields to launch projectiles," Ara explained. "Instead of chemical explosives, they use electricity to accelerate metal objects to high speeds." The 2 other scientists stared at her. "That is impossible," said firmly. "That technology requires sophisticated understanding of field dynamics and power storage. Most species do not develop electromagnetic weapons until they achieve interstellar travel." "But the data does not lie," Ara replied. "Somehow, these primitive humans have learned to build what we call." The term referred to a type of weapon that most advanced species considered very dangerous. Instead of using explosives or chemicals, used powerful magnetic fields to launch metal projectiles at enormous speeds. The projectiles could travel fast enough to punch through the armor of spaceships. They could strike targets on other planets. In the wrong hands, they could destroy entire civilizations. "Perhaps it is just one experimental device," said hopefully. "Maybe only a few humans know how to build such things." Ara began scanning other parts of Earth. She looked for similar energy signatures at other human military bases. What she found made her heart beat faster. She said quietly, "You need to see this." The screen showed dozens of locations around Earth. Each location glowed with the same type of electromagnetic energy signature. Some were on ships, others were on land bases. A few were mounted on vehicles that could move from place to place. "How many?" asked. "I count 47 distinct installations," Ara replied. "And these are just the ones that are currently active. There may be more that are powered down." 47, repeated in a whisper. "This is not an experimental weapon," Ara continued. "This is a deployed weapons system. Multiple human nations possess this technology. They have built enough to arm their entire military forces." The 3 aliens sat in stunned silence. Everything they thought they knew about human development was wrong. These creatures were not primitive at all. They had somehow leapfrogged thousands of years of normal technological development. "We need to report this immediately," said. "Yes," Ara agreed. "But first, we need to understand what else they can do." She began a detailed scan of every human military installation on the planet. What they found over the next several hours would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about the small blue world called Earth. The humans had not just built a few experimental weapons. They had developed an entirely new approach to warfare, and they seemed to have no idea how dangerous their achievement really was. Dr. Aura had not slept for 3 days. Her eyes burned from staring at data screens, but she could not stop working. Every new piece of information about human technology made the situation worse. "Look at this," she called to her colleagues. "The humans have been testing these weapons for over 5 years. 5 years. How did we miss this?" Doctor swam over to examine her findings. His usually calm demeanor had disappeared. "We missed it because we were not looking for advanced technology," he admitted. "Our sensors were calibrated to detect primitive chemical weapons and simple electronics." "We underestimated them completely," Doctor added. She was reviewing files from human computer networks. According to their own records, they call these weapons electromagnetic or mass drivers. They understand exactly what they have built. Ara pulled up a new set of data on the main screen. "It gets worse. Watch this test footage from 6 months ago." The screen showed a human test facility in a desert area. A massive, larger than any they had seen before, was mounted on a concrete platform. Human technicians worked around it, checking systems and loading projectiles. When the weapon fired, the electromagnetic pulse was so powerful it temporarily blinded their sensors. The projectile screamed across the desert at over 10,000 kilometers per hour. It struck a target mountain and punched completely through solid rock. 10,000 kilometers per hour, repeated slowly. That projectile was moving at orbital velocity. "Yes," Ara said grimly. "Do you understand what that means?" All 3 aliens understood perfectly. A projectile moving at orbital velocity could reach space. It could strike targets on moons or nearby planets. It could destroy satellites or space stations with ease. "But surely they cannot aim such weapons accurately over long distances," said hopefully. Ara showed them more test footage. Human hitting targets hundreds of kilometers away with perfect precision. Computer-guided projectiles that could change direction during flight. Smart ammunition that could track moving targets and adjust its path automatically. "Their targeting systems are more advanced than some weapons used by consortium members," she admitted reluctantly. Began calculating energy requirements. To accelerate projectiles to these speeds, they need enormous amounts of electrical power. How are they generating so much energy? "That is another problem," Ara replied. "They have developed new types of power storage. Look at these energy cells." The screen showed human batteries and capacitors that could store incredible amounts of electricity in small spaces. The power density was far beyond what most species achieved until they mastered fusion technology. "They are using these power systems in all their military vehicles," she continued. "Ships, tanks, aircraft, even individual soldier equipment. They have solved energy storage and distribution problems that usually take thousands of years to master." Was reading human technical documents. According to their research papers, they are working on even more powerful versions. Some designs could launch projectiles at 50,000 kilometers per hour. 50,000, whispered. "That is escape velocity for most planets." "Exactly," Ara said. "They are accidentally developing interplanetary weapons." The implications were staggering. If humans could launch projectiles at escape velocity, they could strike targets anywhere in their solar system. They could destroy spaceships, orbital platforms, even entire space colonies with simple kinetic weapons. "There is more," said quietly. "I found classified military documents discussing something called Project Deep Strike. They want to put on satellites." Ara felt her blood turn cold. Space-based were considered the ultimate strategic weapon by most galactic civilizations. In orbit could strike any target on a planet's surface within minutes. Multiple orbital could control entire star systems. "Show me those documents," she demanded. The classified files painted a terrifying picture. Human military planners understood exactly what orbital could do. They were designing satellite platforms that could carry multiple weapons. They planned to launch fleets of armed satellites that could protect Earth from any threat. "Listen to this," said, reading from a human military report. Quote, "Orbital kinetic bombardment platforms will provide global strike capability against any target within 6 minutes of target acquisition. No existing defensive system can intercept projectiles moving at these velocities." End quote. "They know," said in shock. "They completely understand the strategic value of what they have built." Ara began reviewing human space technology. If they could build, maybe they were more advanced in other areas too. What she found confirmed her worst fears. "They have functional space elevators in development," she reported. "Reusable rocket systems that can carry heavy loads to orbit cheaply. Advanced manufacturing facilities for building equipment in zero gravity. They are preparing for large-scale space colonization," observed. "Yes, and when they start building cities in space, those cities will be protected by orbital networks." The three scientists sat in stunned silence, processing the implications. Humans were not just developing advanced weapons. They were preparing to become a spacefaring civilization armed with technology that most species did not possess until they had been exploring the galaxy for centuries. "What happens when they meet other species?" asked quietly. "If they maintain their current aggressive tendencies, they will probably attack first and ask questions later," Ara replied. "Most young species are paranoid about alien contact. They assume all outsiders are enemies. And their weapons could actually hurt us," added. "A projectile moving at relativistic speeds could penetrate the shields of most consortium vessels." Ara began composing an urgent report for the Galactic Scientific Consortium, but as she worked, she realized how difficult this would be to explain. The consortium's bureaucracy moved slowly. They would want detailed analysis, peer review, and committee discussions. "How long will it take for the consortium to respond to our report?" she asked. "Standard procedure requires at least 60 days for emergency classification," replied. "Then another 90 days for the Defense Council to review and make recommendations." 150 days, Ara repeated. In that time, the humans could test even more powerful weapons. They could launch their first orbital platforms. Or they could make contact with other species on their own, pointed out. Their technology is advancing so quickly that they might achieve interstellar capability within decades instead of centuries. The thought sent chills through all three scientists. If humans achieved faster-than-light travel while armed with advanced technology, they could become a threat to the entire galaxy. Young species with powerful weapons often started galactic wars by accident. "We need to do something now," Ara decided. "We cannot wait for the consortium bureaucracy to make decisions." "What are you suggesting?" asked nervously. "I am suggesting we consider options that are normally forbidden," she replied. "Maybe it is time to break the rules." The three aliens looked at each other with growing alarm. They all knew what breaking the rules meant. It meant direct intervention in human development. It meant revealing themselves to a primitive species that was not ready for contact. But the alternative might be even worse. Dr. Ara stared at the latest sensor readings with growing horror. What had started as a routine observation mission had become a crisis that threatened the stability of the entire galaxy. "How many nations possess this technology now?" Doctor asked, his voice tight with worry. 15 major powers have confirmed programs, Ara replied. Another 23 smaller nations are developing their own versions. The technology is spreading faster than any weapon system we have ever documented. Doctor looked up from her analysis station. It gets worse. The humans are sharing technical information with each other. They publish scientific papers describing how to build more powerful. Their knowledge is available to anyone who wants to learn. This was unprecedented in galactic history. Most species kept their advanced weapons technology secret, especially from their enemies. But humans seem to treat development as a scientific challenge rather than a military secret. Look at this research paper, continued, showing them a human document. It explains how to build a that can fire projectiles at 20,000 kilometers per hour. The authors want other scientists to improve their design. They are helping each other build better weapons, asked in disbelief. They call it peer review and scientific advancement, explained. They believe that sharing knowledge makes everyone smarter. Ara reviewed the latest intelligence data. The sharing of information has accelerated their development by decades. What should have taken each nation 50 years to develop independently, they achieved in 5 years working together. The screen displayed a map of Earth showing installations. Red dots marked confirmed weapon sites. Yellow dots showed suspected development facilities. Blue dots indicated research centers working on even more advanced versions. There are over 300 installations now, Ara reported, and the number grows every week. 300, repeated weekly. Most galactic civilizations have fewer weapons platforms protecting their entire star systems. But the quantity was not the only problem. The quality of human was improving at an alarming rate. The latest models could fire multiple projectiles per second, track dozens of targets simultaneously, and adjust their power output for different types of ammunition. Show them the new projectile designs, said quietly. Ara brought up technical drawings from human weapons laboratories. The new ammunition was terrifying in its sophistication. Smart projectiles with their own guidance systems. Penetrator rounds designed to punch through heavy armor. Fragmenting warheads that could destroy multiple targets with a single shot. They have even developed guided projectiles for space warfare, she continued. These weapons can track moving targets across millions of kilometers and adjust their trajectory during flight. Space warfare projectiles, whispered. They are planning to fight battles in space. Yes, and according to their military planning documents, they expect to encounter hostile alien civilizations. This was the detail that frightened the alien scientists most. Human military leaders assumed that space was full of dangerous enemies. Their weapons development was driven by the belief that they would eventually need to defend Earth against alien invasion. They are building their entire space defense strategy around technology, Ara explained. Every human space mission includes plans for weaponizing their vehicles and stations. The evidence was overwhelming. Human space probes carried small systems for asteroid defense. Their space stations were designed with weapon mounting points. Even their civilian spacecraft included basic kinetic weapons for protection. Look at their latest space elevator design, said, showing them construction plans. The elevator platform includes a military section with orbital bombardment capability. The space elevator was a massive structure that would allow humans to transport materials to orbit cheaply and efficiently. But instead of using it only for peaceful purposes, they planned to turn it into a weapon platform that could strike any target on Earth within minutes. The elevator could launch projectiles at any planet in their solar system, calculated. Mars, Venus, the asteroid belt, even the outer gas giants. They are building the infrastructure for system-wide conquest, Ara agreed, and they do not even realize how dangerous they are becoming. The most disturbing part was the human attitude toward their own weapons. They treated as routine military equipment, like any other tool of warfare. They complained about maintenance costs, argued over budget allocations, and worried about spare parts availability. "Listen to this conversation we intercepted from a human naval base," said, playing an audio recording. Two human voices discussed their ship's system. They complained that the weapon used too much electricity. They worried that the metal rails wore out too quickly and needed frequent replacement. They suggested improvements to make the system more reliable and cheaper to operate. "They are treating galaxy-changing technology like a household appliance," observed. "Exactly. They have no idea that they have developed one of the most feared weapons in galactic warfare." Ara attempted once again to contact the Galactic Scientific Consortium's Emergency Command Center. The communication channels were still clogged with bureaucratic procedures. Her urgent reports sat in electronic queues, waiting for approval from multiple departments. "How long has it been since we sent our first emergency report?" she asked. 43 days, replied. "No response from the consortium. No acknowledgement that they have even read our data." 43 days, she repeated bitterly. "In that time, humans have tested 12 new designs, launched 8 more weapon platforms, and published 17 research papers on electromagnetic acceleration technology. The consortium does not understand how fast humans develop new technology," observed. "They are using normal evaluation procedures for a species that is advancing at unprecedented speed." While they waited for official responses, the situation on Earth continued to deteriorate. Human nations were not just building for defense. They were starting to point them at each other. "Tensions are rising between several major powers," Ara reported. 3 nations have moved equipped warships into disputed territories. 2 others have conducted demonstration tests near their neighbors' borders. "They are using their new weapons for intimidation," noted. "Yes, and if any nation actually fires these weapons in anger, the results could destabilize their entire planet." Humans were powerful enough to destroy cities with single shots. A war fought with such weapons could render large areas of Earth uninhabitable. Worse yet, the electromagnetic pulses from mass battles could disrupt the planet's electronic infrastructure. "We cannot wait any longer for official approval," Ara decided. "The situation is too dangerous." "What are you proposing?" asked nervously. "Emergency First Contact Protocol," Ara replied firmly. "We reveal ourselves to the humans before they can use their weapons to start a global war." The Emergency First Contact Protocol was the most extreme measure available to consortium observers. It could only be used when a species posed an immediate existential threat to galactic stability. Using it without proper authorization was a crime punishable by permanent exile. "The consortium will court-martial us," warned. "The consortium will thank us for preventing a galactic catastrophe," Ara replied. "But only if we act now, before it is too late." She began powering up their ship's communication systems. If the humans were determined to become a spacefaring civilization armed with advanced weapons, the galaxy needed to know about it immediately. The time for passive observation was over. Dr. Ara's hands trembled as she prepared to activate the Emergency First Contact Protocol. In her 300 years she had never taken such a drastic action. But the data was clear. Humanity had become an existential threat to galactic stability, and they did not even know it. "Are you certain about this?" Doctor asked one final time. "Once we reveal ourselves, there is no going back." "Look at the projections," Ara replied, pointing to her analysis screen. "At their current rate of development, humans will have interplanetary networks within 20 years, interstellar capability within 50 years, if they encounter other species with their current mindset. They will assume we are enemies and start shooting," Doctor finished quietly. The three scientists had spent the last week analyzing human psychology and military doctrine. Humans were naturally paranoid about threats from space. Their entertainment media was filled with stories about hostile alien invasions. Their military leaders assumed that any contact with alien species would lead to war. "We have to warn the galaxy," Ara decided, "and we have to warn the humans about what they are becoming." She began the activation sequence for emergency contact. The process would send signals directly to the Galactic Consortium's highest command levels, bypassing all normal bureaucratic channels. Within hours, every advanced civilization in the galaxy would know about the human threat. But as she worked, her sensors detected new activity on Earth. A human military test was beginning at one of their largest facilities. "Wait," she said, pausing the activation sequence. "Let us watch this test first. We need to understand the full scope of their capabilities before we make contact." The main screen focused on a massive human installation in what they called the Pacific Ocean. A platform the size of a city floated on the water, surrounded by dozens of smaller ships and aircraft. "What are they testing?" asked. "According to their communications, it is their new project system," Ara replied. "A design for extreme long-range precision strikes." The three aliens watched in fascination and growing terror as human technicians prepared their weapon. The itself was enormous, over a kilometer long and capable of generating electromagnetic fields that could be detected from space. "Look at the power readings," observed. "They are drawing energy from nuclear reactors, fusion generators, and advanced capacitor banks simultaneously. The projectile they are loading weighs over 10 tons, added. A 10-ton projectile accelerated to orbital velocity would have the destructive power of a small atomic bomb." But what happened next was even more shocking than the aliens expected. As the human test began, they intercepted radio communications between the engineers operating the system. "Hey Jim, the cooling system is acting up again," one human voice said. "We might need to shut down after this shot to replace those pumps." "Again," another voice replied with obvious annoyance. "That is the third time this month. These things are too expensive to keep breaking down." "Tell me about it. The maintenance budget for this thing is already over budget, and we still have 6 more tests scheduled. Maybe we should ask engineering to design something more reliable. This constant maintenance is driving everyone crazy." The aliens listened to this conversation in stunned disbelief. "They are complaining about maintenance costs," said Weekly, "while preparing to fire a weapon that could threaten entire star systems," added. "The fired with a massive electromagnetic pulse that temporarily overloaded every sensor on the alien ship. When their instruments cleared, they tracked the projectile as it screamed across the Pacific Ocean at nearly 20,000 kilometers per hour. The projectile struck a target island over 4,000 kilometers away with perfect accuracy. The impact was so powerful it registered as a small earthquake on human seismic instruments. But the human engineers were not celebrating their success. They were arguing about the cost of electricity. "Did you see the power bill for that shot?" one voice complained. 40 million credits just for the electricity. The accounting department is going to have a heart attack." "We need to find cheaper energy sources," another engineer agreed. "Maybe solar panels or wind turbines could help offset the costs." "Solar panels," Ara repeated numbly. "They want to use solar panels to power weapons that could destroy planets." The conversation continued for another hour. The humans discussed spare parts availability, worker safety regulations, environmental impact studies, and budget allocations. They treated their world-shaking technology like any other industrial project. "They have no idea," said in wonder. "They completely do not understand what they have achieved." "They think they have built a bigger gun," observed. "They do not realize they have built a tool that could reshape galactic civilization." Ara listened to more human communications over the next several hours. Engineers worried about metal fatigue in the barrels. Accountants complained about cost overruns. Safety inspectors insisted on better protective equipment for workers. "Listen to this," she said, playing a recording from a human government meeting. Political leaders were discussing the program's future. They argued about funding levels, environmental regulations, and international treaties. One official complained that the weapons were too expensive and unreliable for practical military use. Another suggested that technology might be more useful for civilian space launches than warfare. Why waste money on weapons when we could use this technology to build better spacecraft? They are already thinking about peaceful applications, noted. Yes, some humans want to turn their weapons into tools for exploration and development. This changed everything. Humans were not just building weapons of mass destruction. They were engineering solutions to problems. Their aggressive nature was balanced by curiosity and pragmatism. They will eventually realize that cooperation is more profitable than conflict, Ara concluded. But they need guidance. They need to understand the galactic implications of their technology before they accidentally start a war. She resumed the emergency first contact protocol, but with a different message. Instead of warning the galaxy about a new threat, she would recommend immediate diplomatic engagement. Humans needed to be brought into the galactic community quickly, before their misunderstanding of their own capabilities caused problems. The activation sequence completed. Within hours, signals would reach consortium command centers throughout the galaxy. Emergency response fleets would be deployed to Earth's solar system, but instead of arriving as conquerors or destroyers, they would come as teachers and guides. "What will you tell them?" asked. "The truth," Ara replied. "That species Sol-3 humanoid has independently developed kinetic warfare technology typically associated with Type 2 civilizations, that they appear unaware of the galactic implications of their achievement, and that immediate uplift to consortium membership is recommended before they accidentally destabilize interstellar relations." "Think they will listen?" wondered. "They will have to," Ara said firmly. "Because the alternative is explaining to every advanced civilization in the galaxy why we let a species armed with relativistic kill vehicles develop interstellar travel without supervision." Over the next several days, response signals began arriving from consortium worlds. Emergency, diplomatic fleets were being prepared. The galaxy's most experienced negotiators were being briefed on human psychology and culture. But the final message that arrived was the most telling. It came from the consortium's defense council and contained just one line. "How did a species that discovered electricity 200 years ago build weapons that our own military considers extremely dangerous?" Ara smiled as she composed her reply. The same way they did everything else. They treated it as an engineering problem and refused to give up until they solved it. The humans had built weapons that could threaten the stars, and their biggest concern was the electricity bill. It was the most human thing they could possibly have done. Soon, the galaxy would meet Earth's strange inhabitants, and both sides would discover that the universe was far more interesting than anyone had imagined.